Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle. Me. In my series, The New World Order. This will be another addition to the year 2007. And I'll call this title Jewish Dominance. So remember, I was printing out and collecting press releases, documents from my investigation, when I was watching alternate news, videos, or websites. I don't believe anybody. I went and looked it up. And so I've collected quite a bit of documents over the years. So I'll start out with this document, The Jewish Control of Wealth. Jew News of the Day 2007. You can look it up, reading my highlighted portions. But according to the news, February 2016, we are in trouble. Apparently, under the guise of a stock market crash, economics, the dollar crash, whatever, there might be an executive proclamation by the dictator presidents who are issuing executive orders, like Obama just did recently, on increasing gun control policies. They basically want to know who has a gun, your name and your address, and what you have. Why? I can only think of one reason why. In warfare, you want to know what the enemy has. And there's all kinds of news out there. If you look on YouTube, Walmart's being converted into FEMA camps. Inside the Walmarts, on the four corners, apparently they've built above the floor level some kind of tower, I suppose, where a guard could be with a machine gun. And apparently the underground facilities, bases the military has in secret. They're also making pipelines to these Walmart facilities, according to the videos and alternate news websites. I'm listening to these people talking about it. And there's all kinds of rumors of World War III. Apparently preparations for World War III. So anyways, they might take us to a cashless society. So they know everything that you do, that I do, everything you buy, anybody you give money to, all has to be transferred probably by some kind of microchip installed on our bodies, as per the Bible, 666, the mark of the beast, which says in the Bible, you won't be able to buy or sell without the mark of the beast. And dissidents, insurgents, people in America, or if they're doing this in Europe too, or in Canada too, elsewhere, people who don't cooperate will be apprehended and taken to these camps, likely to never be seen again. You think I'm kidding? Well, maybe some of these documents that I collected or are about 2007 might help us all see a little more of the truth. So interesting to look back. These documents I printed out, and realize I looked at them then and put them in a box in a folder. Year after year I did that. Always saying I was going to get to them again. Maybe use them for material for a book. Little did I know I would just jump into videos after almost 9 or 10 years of research. But anyways, Jews dominate our lives through the control of wealth. The basic principle of Jewish dominance, as stated in the protocols of the learned elders of Zion, I call it the Protocols of Zion. You can look them up on the internet. Not that many pages. You can get PDF file, print them out, read them, highlight them. I highly recommend it. When you do that and you see what they say they're going to do, you will see that they are doing what they said they were going to do. They permit us to issue and control the money of a nation. We care not who makes its laws. So these people said, if we let them issue and control our money, they don't care who makes our laws. Obviously, they can use that money to control our politicians. In 1764, a Hiva Jew named Meyer Amschel Rothschild waxed wealthy under the favor of his patron, William IX, Landgrave of Hesse-Kassel in Frankfurt. William IX was a coin collector, and the pawnbroker, Mayer Amschel, supplied him with rare coins. An association developed which proved advantageous for the monarch and subject alike. When Landgrave rented the Hussein mercenaries, so Landgrave rented the Hessian mercenaries to George III of England to fight the American patriots of the Revolutionary War. Mayer Amschel handled the financial arrangements. Thus, the Jewish House of Rothschild began its first financial war venture. So, the Rothschilds' first financial war venture was financing the King of England in the war with America, the Revolutionary War. Interestingly enough, these same Rothschilds took over our banking system in 1913 with the creation of the Federal Reserve, nothing to do with federal, owned by the same people. In essence, they took control of our finances, and they've been sucking money out of the USA. Huge amount of money. An obscenely amount of money. Crazy. And they've been allowing the people in the United States to accumulate some wealth. Then they crash the system. And then they allow it to people to accumulate some wealth over 10 or whatever years. Then they crash the system. They call it a bubble, a depression, a recession. They play with words. But they control the leverage, just like on a plane. They can put more money into the economy, and they can pull it back. They can raise the rates, interest rates, and they can lower the rates. Total control. The Rothschilds' opportunity came with the Napoleonic Wars. They financed England largely and made England pay generously for it. The Jewish Encyclopedia informs us that the Jewish House of Rothschilds made a banker's profit 4 times on the 80 million pounds sterling of gold brought for use in Wellington's victory. On the sale of the gold to Wellington, on the sale of Wellington's paper, on the repurchase of gold from Wellington, and on the sale to Portugal of the gold brought back from Wellington. So they were making huge commissions, moving 80 million pounds here to here to here to here. The different banks should act in the common interests, regardless of the nation in which it was placed. So Daddy Rothschilds told his sons, who opened up branches of banks in different countries, in different Germany, Spain, England, Austria, United States. The different banks should act in common interest, regardless of the nation which it was placed. The end of the Napoleonic Wars found the Jewish House of Rothschilds entrenched to exploit their opportunities. For example, Austria-Hungary, after the war, in attempting to put her finances in order, retired her paper money and reduced the public loan, required ready money. Her share of the French indemnity was payable over a series of years. So I suppose when you lose a war, and we might want to remember this, you have to pay an indemnity for war debt. And I believe the United States is being set up to lose any potential war. And then, of course, when we lose, like they did to Germany after World War I, they will say that we are in default of trillions beyond trillions. And then the suffering, chaos, and anarchy and death will begin. Is that the way it's going to be? That's the way it happened all over the world. For generous discount, the Rothschilds advanced the indemnities. The Rothschilds, through Jews in a Gentile Christian society, demanded as their reward titles of nobility. And as we read in that one book, Jewish Utopia by Professor Higgins, they believe they are the aristocrats of the world. In other books that I've gone over, they brag that there's nothing on this planet that wasn't created, invented, or written by anyone else but them. Because they have a higher IQ than the rest of us, and they reduce us to Gentile, which we've been called since throughout history, thousands of years. But they call us Goyim, which means cattle. The Freemasons call us profane, and H.G. Wells called us animals not to be trusted. This is what the elite think of us. We need to watch out. In this way, a Jewish financial network was established that eventually encompassed Europe. Thus, it was observed by E. Alexander Powell in his 1909 book, The Unseen Empire. I'll have to get that book. 1909, 100 and something years ago. They were warning people. When will we wake up? The European peoples are no longer under the government of the respective nations. They have become the subjects of another power, a power unseen but felt in the palace as in the cottage. It is the occult, magic, witchcraft, power of the House of Rothschild that reigns over princes and paupers under fawn in the most abject subserviency. Soon, if not already, America will fall to this unseen power. Little picture here. Alan Greenspan, dual citizen, Jewish, Israeli, America. Banachek, Chernoff in charge of Homeland Security, and many others. Obama's advisor, Raul Emanuel. So many others. There's been a long list. You can look it up. Their allegiance is to Israel, the Zionist New World Order folks, who control the United Nations. And yes, there's many people in cahoots with them. The top levels of the Freemasons, the Illuminati, Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, Club of Rome, Bilderberger groups, Bohemian Grove, Hollywood banksters, elites, Bill Gates types, Ted Turner types, who said they want to reduce the population. It's nothing but economics at this point. They're going to steal everything we have in the United States under the name of biodiversity and sustainability, using the excuse of overpopulation and global warming, or global cooling, or climate change, or terrorism, or a dollar crash, or a plague, pole shift, maybe Project Bluebeam. Well, they'll put Jesus in the sky, a big hologram. Everybody will hear Jesus. Or if you're in China, you might hear Buddha. In the Middle East, maybe it'll be Muhammad. Whatever. They got this big, large event planned in the future. So it seems. This unseen power has indeed subjected America to its occult Jewish control. Perhaps the best proof of this constant expansion of Jewish financial power in America is furnished by the activities of the great Jewish banking houses and investment companies. Year by year, Goldman Sachs and Company, Coombe, Loeb, and Lazard Frères, Lehman Brothers, and others are pushing their financial control deeper and deeper. Remember, this is in 2007. Let us not forget what happened in 2008 when they crashed the stock market. And because their institutions were too big to fail, gave themselves untold trillions while everybody else was crashing and burning. You suppose they bought up everything? Was that their 8th or 9th time of crashing the system in the USA alone? Into the American economy. They're gaining more control. It should be noted that though these banking houses have non-Jewish partners, they nonetheless remain firmly in Jewish hands. The extent of Jewish financial control is indicated by examining the roster of directors of American leading corporations. Remember I told you, I used to get a newsletter every month from Tex Mars. Whenever you buy texmars.com, he wrote a lot of books, made a lot of videos, does a radio show. And if you buy one of his books, he'll send you a monthly newsletter. But in one of them, it said that the CEOs of most large corporations are Jewish. Well, I thought that was crazy. So I did take it upon myself to find the biggest companies, the top 200 or 500, and sit at my computer and go on Wikipedia, type in the corporation, see who the CEO was, type his name into Wikipedia, look down at the bottom, and yes, indeed, pretty much they were all Jewish. Crazy. By the 1970s, other Jewish partners of Goldman Sachs were on the board of directors of such companies as Continental Cam, McKinsey, Robbins, Champion Paper, United Biscuit, B.F. Goodrich, Pillsbury, Sperry Hutchison, partners of the Jewish banking house of Coombe Loeb, are directors of Westinghouse, Sears Industries, U.S. Rubber, Getty Oil, Kennecott Copper, to name a few. Lehman Brothers partners are directors of Pan America Airlines, 20th Century Fox, Cheeseboro, Pons, Bristol Miles, RCA, Caterpillar Tractor, and again, to name only a few. So here I was back in 2007, studying, looking up stuff, planning on not doing writing any book or making videos or speaking or anything, until I had studied for 10 years. That was a promise I made to myself. Jews control our lives. And the anti-Semitism of our day has its watchword. Fagin is alive and well on planet Earth. Politicians and universities with their large Jewish endowments, who like the European powers of the 19th century, are fawning in abject subservience to the Jewish financial Mongols. See, once they controlled the Federal Reserve in cahoots with Woodrow Wilson, who had pretty much exclusively Jewish advisors, much to the dismay of other people in government back then, also conspired with the Jews to get us into World War I, because Rothschilds wanted the Palestinian land. So he made a deal with the Britons, who were losing World War I, because Germany had so many submarines, were sinking all the ships. Lest we forget, Britain is an island, and the people were virtually starving, so they had to surrender. But Along came the Rothschilds and the New York Jewish people, banksters, whatever. Not all Jewish people. A lot of my information I got because I've been reading books written by Jewish authors warning us about these evil folks into the Kabbalah, witchcraft, occult, and wanting wealth and power and dominance over the world. Crazy psychopaths, possibly in league, as far-fetched as this may seem. I mean, a lot of people are buying the Ascension, New Age, gray aliens or reptilians or beings from other planets bringing to civilization some enlightenment. They'll believe that. But if you read the Bible, with King Solomon, way back then, thousands of years ago, he had a ring with six-pointed star. Apparently had the magic ability, with probably incantations, witchcraft, to bring forth demons and beings. And that's where he got his power. So apparently, these Illuminati folks, according to people who are testified, you can look up the videos on YouTube, Arizona Wilder and David Icke and many others. I've watched many of them, people who, whistleblowers or people who escaped, tell all about the insane rituals where these people actually, apparently, as bizarre as it sounds, shapeshift into some kind of reptilian being and viciously attack a victim laying on an altar, usually a child. Drinking the blood and eating the flesh apparently gives them some kind of euphoric high, or helps them sustain their human cloaking when they shapeshift. I don't create it, I just read it and report. As bizarre as it sounds. But these people apparently are not like the rest of us. The removal of all things Jewish from rational discussion regulates unfriendly opinions of Jews in the hushed subconsciousness of millions upon millions of Americans. So we're not supposed to talk about this. You'll be they'll call you an anti-Semite. A friend of mine the other day, when I was explaining some of this stuff, he looked at me and he goes, "Are you an anti-Semite?" And I'm thinking, I'm anti-witchcraft. And anybody who is going to be in Luciferian satanic rituals, yeah. Even Rabbi Marvin Antelman, in his 2 books, To Eliminate the Opaque, wrote some material about Hitler's diary, where they abducted a gypsy man in Munich, Germany, sacrificed him on an altar to bring forth this being, which apparently appeared, and they wanted the being to impregnate a young girl laying on the altar to bring forth some superior beast. In the Bible, a dozen times or more, Jesus is casting out unclean spirits and demons. Throughout history and psychic research and all that, it's all well documented. You could stack the books 10 feet high and you wouldn't even touch the surface of the documentation and books written on this. There's books written for police departments on how to contact psychics to help them in research to find criminals and solve crimes. I've got books upon books about remote viewing, where people leave their body, go in the astral plane to spy for governments. People have out-of-body experiences all the time. And then some people, like children, die in the hospital or brought back to life. They describe the tunnel. And relatives who were there and saying it's not your time, relatives who were dead, like grandparents, before they were even born. So do you believe in witchcraft? Do you believe these people have an evil intention? Do you believe that they're planning? I mean, the commercials on TV and videos are everywhere now. They're all but announcing this cashless society. Can you imagine the control? All the numbers will be in a computer. And anybody who talks badly about the government, I guess being called an anti-government belligerent, or a insurgent, or militant, has many names, they can cut off your money supply. And they can just add numbers to their accounts and give them free money all day long. It'll be one crazy world. We'll certainly be slaves. The hushed subconsciousness of millions of Americans, instead of submitting a critique of the Jews to the free play of ideas, the Jews and their liberal supporters have managed to organize an inquisition in which all writing and thoughts critical of Jewry are treated as a threat to the moral order of mankind. But the moral order of mankind has been subverted and overturned by the Jewish control of wealth. The Jews get what they want, whether or not it serves the interest of morality, because of the root of all evil, that is, their money. But the sudden release of resentment pent up in millions upon millions of Americans could very well erupt into an explosive backlash against the Jews with the control of our lives. And hence, that's why they're preparing for this event in the United States. You know, a lot of people in the videos are predicting a civil war. I'll say this, as the economy gets worse, they'll say they have a nuclear explosion in some harbor in the U.S. or the world. They'll say the terrorists claim there's other nuclear bombs on some containers that have been shipped to America and on the back of some truck going to who knows what city. So all truck traffic will cease. Days later, people will have no food and no water. And who's going to be accusing who? The media, owned by the elites, will say maybe the white people are responsible for it. It'll rile up the black people to start rioting. Maybe they'll say the poor people are responsible, taking too many resources. Whatever hatred they'll drum up like they're doing in the Middle East right now with the Sunni and the Shiites, they are professionals at creating the hate. Is there any question to that? The only answer to preventing such an eruption is for America to become a Christian nation once again and put the Jews in the rank of infidel. This will be the beginning of severing the Jews control our lives. Let the Jews be told that their ancestors committed deicide in crucifying the Lord of glory, Jesus Christ. And let the Jews be told, if we set the example, that they need to repent and become good Christian citizens of the host nation in which they reside. So this is Brother Nathaniel, street evangelist. On the bottom there, Brother Nathaniel has a lot of videos on YouTube. He's one of the people that I enjoy watching his videos. He says it like it is, like Donald Trump did the other day in the debate with Jeb Bush. And Jeb Bush got angry and said, "I'm sick and tired of you talking about my family." And Donald Trump was all but alluding to 911, and the truth was going to come out. So it causes me some concern, because Donald Trump could get put away like John Kennedy. And Scalia, the Chief Justice. What, 9 justices on the Supreme Court? He was the conservative one. So this is an election year, and he would have prevented any kind of decisions like Abraham Lincoln made. Let's say we have this event that appears like they're planning for, this national crisis that caused martial law. And let's say Obama wanted to suspend elections. Justice Scalia would have been in a position to say that's not constitutional. But now that he's gone, and the other 4 or 5 Jewish justices on the Supreme Court who also brought us the states don't have a right to ban gay marriage ruling. I think the government would be in a position of power to get the Supreme Court to pretty much go along with what they're going to do, whatever they're planning. And of course, if the evidence is real, you can look it up on YouTube and alternate websites, and a lot of people reporting. But if they are preparing for some insane event, with the Walmarts and Jade Helm and other things, all these disaster news, troops gathering in northern Saudi Arabia, and the powers that be are dying to kill or remove Assad from Syria. They're crazy mad about it. Supplying the ISIS or Al-Qaeda troops with weapons. And who knows where it'll end. Something's being planned. And of course the news reports about the government's going to issue some edict, some executive order or something, maybe because of a crisis. And we have to go to a cashless society. That'll be the beginning of the end there. So with that said, I'm going to move on to another document. And let me be clear, like my friend accusing me of being an anti-Semite. PhD Henry Mackau, Jewish author, famous man, in Canada, wrote the book, Illuminati, the Cult That Hijacked the World. And I've gone over in my previous videos on my series, Freemasonry and Satanism, from number 66 in the series to 71. Books like Bloody Zion, and Jack Bernstein, a American Jew who moved to Israel, he tells all. Wasn't a very pleasant experience for that American Jewish guy, Jack Bernstein, to move to Israel and discover things are not what they seem. There is a deception afoot. So anyways, this next document is Take Back America. And here's another guy that I go to his website or see his videos, Reese.com on the top there. All right, here we go. It does not take as much time to prove sleaze in the first degree against Congress, where the prima facie evidence is piling up so high, it is getting hard to see the Capitol dome. I don't think there's too many people out there who are not aware of the insanity going on Capitol Hill. And the thing, they don't seem to listen to the people. They're deceiving the people and laughing about it. Hillary's up on the polls, I guess, to be the Democratic candidate. Donald Trump just won South Carolina. It's so insane. Larry Nichols tells all on Lisa Haven or on InfoWars and other channels, YouTube videos. Larry Nichols, look him up, about all the craziness in the Clinton administration's past. It's so horrific, I don't even want to try talking about it. Just listen to Larry Nichols and Lisa Haven. Look it up, right? When you're watching my videos, you should have a little notebook and make notes, because I don't want you to believe me. Go look it up. And when the hair stands up on the back of your neck and you've got the evidence, go tell your friends. So anyways, Mr. Carl Schwartz, Take Back America, he says he received an interesting email from someone who is apparently a Zionist Jew, accusing me of being a 21st century Nazi. He left out all the references to Global Crossing, RICO, in my interview with the LA Times that they did not run. So Global Crossing was another one of those Ponzi scheme corporations that were set up. RICO is some government legislation that was created to try to stop the racketeering going on in Washington and in the government and the world. These people are a mafia-type organization, and they are taking us to the cleaners. And they're going to laugh all the way at the end of this when they crash the system intentionally and say we are at fault. And the knucklehead Americans, and probably do the same thing in Europe, and the knucklehead Europeans, and the same thing in Canada, and the knucklehead citizens in Canada, everybody will believe that they're the ones who caused it because of idiots elected in Congress are just making stupid mistakes, blunders, when it's all intentional. Whatever happens will be planned. And it'll be worldwide. Nothing is going to happen worldwide by without being a coincidence. It's going to happen everywhere. So then you know it's planned. They have to do it everywhere because they can't do it in Europe because then the United States will rile up. So they have to do it in both. Then the Canadians might rise up and they have to do it there. It'll be a worldwide thing, and they've been taking over control of nations after nations after nations. And we all know this for the past 50, 60 years. It's been pretty obvious. John Perkins, who wrote the book Economic Confessions of an Economic Hitman, tells all. They bankrupted nations on purpose, borrowing tons of money, probably from the United States Federal Reserve, knowing that they wouldn't be able to pay the money back, the people who lent the money. And then when they did default, if they didn't submit to bankruptcy court and control, then of course they would send in the United States troops, NATO troops, and enforce the laws coming out of the occult-controlled United Nations. America is being plundered and vast sums of money sent to Israel. This is in Reese.com, Take Back America. Carl Schwartz. With the failure of Enron and Global Crossing, there were many articles in the Jewish newspaper about the effect that was going to have on the money flowing to Israel. I pointed out to this person that clearly seeing that Israel does not want peace in the Middle East does not make one a Nazi. It makes them wide awake to reality. The United States was founded to be a non-denominational, we all know that, freedom of religion. But that is correct, which also means we're not the Zionist states of America. So that also means the Zionist Jewish folks can't control the government with their Luciferic religion and occult and magic and greed, and they don't have any tendencies towards compassion or mercy. If you read the Talmud and listen to what they plan on doing, or the Protocols of Zion, you will get it. Look at my previous videos in Freemasonry and Satanism, or this series, the New World Order media and press releases. No matter where I turn, whether it's books or these documents over the past 10, 11 years, it's there again, 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 and again. The point that I make always is there is a big difference between Zionism and Jew, and I'm saying the same thing. And when our policies favoring only Israel disrupt policies in many ways and in many places, it is time to balance the matter and treat the Arab nations the same as Israel. There was one document I learned, and I'm sure it'll pop up in my collection, from 46 when they created the State of Israel, 48, till 73 or something. You can look this up. $90 billion was given to Israel, while the rest of the world during that same time period did not receive $90 billion. We all know the Jewish PACs are the most powerful political action committees in America. Unless you're just blind and incapable of thinking, people know that. Even that one female presidential candidate recently said, if she's elected president, the first person she's calling is Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel. Why would anybody do that? How do we allow a dot on the map to control America, as Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said? And Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel said they hate America. Look up Benjamin Netanyahu and Fink's Bar. Read what he said. He didn't know somebody was recording it. Then listen to what I'm reading here by Carl Schwartz on Reese.com, Take Back America. In 2007, what was I supposed to think? Was I supposed to stop investigating? It is time to balance the matter and treat Arab nations the same as Israel. And they're bombing the smithereens out of Syria right now. You got to feel so bad for those people. They've done it to Iraq, and they're still doing it to Iraq, and probably all around there. It's genocide, and the people they don't kill, they're sending to Europe and America. And these people are not going to come to Europe and America and love us. They think they don't know the truth, just like most Americans don't know the truth. They think we are the murderers over there in helicopters machine gunning them to death, or in jet planes bombing them to death. They don't know about the hidden hand behind the scenes, the Illuminati, secret mystery school of Babylon, likely involved with some kind of demonic beings. No, there's no aliens from some other solar systems that's far advanced of the human race called the Galactic Federation that's coming here to save us. There is one way to live without fear, and I've learned it. I used to just believe in God. I wasn't serious about it. But upon reading all this stuff and the witchcraft and magic and all the stuff they're into, I am in complete agreement that we should trust God. Believe in Jesus. Remember, these are the people who crucified Jesus. They kill Christians over there in the Middle East, and right now, they want to eliminate Christianity. High up on the list. Why? Rabbi Marvin Antelman wrote about that, to eliminate the opate. The opate is the belief in God. Now think about it now. If they're using magic, incantations, interdimensional travel with CERN and Shiva and 666, and they don't want us to believe in God and pray, what are they afraid of? And even people who were reportedly said they were abducted by creatures that they called aliens, when they cried out in Jesus' name for help, the alien dropped them like a hot potato. Or they reawoke in their bed and they were back home. There's something more to this reality. We are spiritual beings in these biological bodies. That is what Israel does not want to see happen. So Israel does not want we Americans to be treating the other Arab nations like we treat Israel. And by the way, that's why the USA ship Liberty was bombed to smithereens. You need to go look that up if you don't know about it. Because the U.S. was on friendly terms and getting friendlier with Egypt. Israel said no. So they sent their jets. And they zoomed onto the ship with the Americans on board the deck, waving hello to their friends, the Israelis. The Israelis proceeded to bomb them and bomb them and bomb them, incinerate them and blow them up in a very vicious manner. So it can only be clearly thought that they had every intentions of sinking that ship and making sure there wasn't one witness that it was Israelis who were doing it. They wanted to blame it on the Egyptians. There is a hidden hand behind the scenes running things. The following map shows the change in control between Palestinian and Israeli since the forming of Israel after World War II. In many instances, that land was not purchased, it was taken by force. Many Arabs and many Palestinian Christians have been deposed of land, home, business, etc. Many of them have also been maimed and killed. There are many things that need to change, including turning a blind eye to Israeli aggression towards all. So I have to be honest, before I started this investigation, I didn't know where the problem originated from. I knew something was strange. So anyways, I showed this in my previous video. But the green is 1946. This was called Palestine, where my finger is. And then in 1947, you can see that half of the green is white. That's now Israel. And in 1949 to 67, the green Palestine is even less. And today, I suspect they don't even have this much. Because this document was published in 2006. Well, it says here, the infighting on the Democratic side of the House has already started. You can be assured that big oil, big defense, big pharma, big banks, and Israel Political Action Committee are all pushing hard to get their pet politicians put into the right seats of power. So we citizens are not organized. We don't have nearly the money of the people who own our Federal Reserve, who are bilking our country of billions and trillions of dollars, using that money to bribe our own and control our own politicians. And like Scalia, Supreme Court Justice, if he was murdered, which is the way it seems, according to a lot of reports, I'm sure that any politician who does not go along with these Jewish powers don't get into office or could wind up dead, or like John Kennedy, or set up for crimes. I was never any big fan of Senator Weiner, because of the things he did. But little did I know until I continued my investigation. Prior to being exposed for his Weiner crimes, he wrote a really nasty piece about government activities. So once you cross them, you're in trouble. So moving on this document, in the House, a bitter battle was underway after Pelosi said she would prefer Republican John Murtha of Pennsylvania to be majority leader over her current lieutenant, Republican Steny Hoyer of Maryland. Critics accused Pelosi of backpedaling on a pledge to scrub the House of corruptions. Apparently, Murtha had some dark secrets in his closet. Murtha, a decorated Vietnam veteran who favors an immediate downdraw of U.S. troops in Iraq, has fought charges for years of using his senior status on the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee to award favors to campaign contributors. You see what I mean? They're controlled. Shot back, Jennifer Schrader, Pelosi spokeswoman. House Democrats will lead the most honest and open Congress in history. Leader Pelosi has pledged to change the way business in Washington is done, and that's what she'll do. Does anybody believe that? For those of us who have good memories, Bill Clinton made that same basic false promise when he was running for office and then crapped all over America. That's what this author says. Even when the entire world knew he was sleazy, he kept preaching about how ethical his administration was, even as indictments rained down all around him. Over on the other side of the aisle, Newt Gingrich did too with his contract with America, and then crapped all over America. For those of us who have good memories, George W. Bush made the same false promise when he was running for office, and then crapped all over America and much of the rest of the world. All these Republican thugs in the House and Senate made the same basic false promise and then crapped all over America. Unforgettable names like First, DeLay, Ney, Cunningham, Foley, Hastert, McConnell, etc. Behind the scenes, the Democrats were still making sure their major campaign contributors were getting a slice of the cushy contracts that Bush company was handing out during the past 6 years. Meanwhile, they're putting more financial pressure on the American people, even taking away Social Security benefits. And apparently planning for some big event where we crash the system, go to a cashless society, no food, no water, and people will be herded, especially dissidents, people who don't want to go along, into these FEMA camps and tunnels underground, according to my research. And the government bought 450 hollow point bullets, and they got underground facilities from coast to coast, apparently with super fast trains, and truck drivers reported delivering guillotines to army bases, and more legislation curtailing any discussion of Christianity. Well, they bring us the statue of Baphomet, the devil with the horns, into public. They want to erect it in a Oklahoma state building front lawn, but that was nixed for a while, so they had a grand opening in Detroit, and all the witches came out. And 2 little children are attached to the statue, looking up at the beast in awe. Look up Baphomet. People don't want to believe the truth of this. There's more to reality than we know. The moral of that story, when a politician's lips are moving, we know this old story, odds are very high that they're lying to the audience. A lot of people don't know what to think of Donald Trump. I don't think they're going to give us anybody who's really going to defend we the people in the USA. Even the Canadian people on talk shows are just saying, what is wrong with the USA people? Why don't they wake up? This author says, I learned at a young age that when someone is afraid to speak the truth, they are not fit to lead. Because a lot of these people that write articles for newspapers, they know what's going on. Professors, leaders of companies, institutions, even politicians, they know what's going on. But they're afraid to speak the truth. They think they're going to be protected when the stuff hits the fan. They are not fit to be married or to do business or trust with money or the future of a city, state, country, nation. Lying is a character flaw, and people with character flaws make lousy leaders. We have a fool in the White House, this is back in 2007, and a gaggle of them over in Capitol Hill. There is an entire flock of turkeys roosting over around the Capitol dome just about every day. Instead of a big red A, we need to look at them as wearing a big red yellow L to clearly identify them as liars that are screwing the U.S. and we the people to death. So here I am reading this back in 2007, not knowing what to believe. Every American, regardless of political affiliation, needs to start reminding the Democrats what the real mandate is. We did not vote them back in just to prove they are just as sleazy as Bush and as inept as the true leadership of the Republican House and the Senate has been. That used to kill me back then when Bush was president, and John Boehner, and all the other Republicans. You never heard a peep out of them going against George Bush and all that insanity going on. And we all know 911 was an inside job. And a lot of these terrorist shootings are using crisis actors and staged events to sway public opinion. Let's go look up some videos on YouTube about Sandy Hook, and then you decide. One of the most ignorant policies I have ever seen coming out of D.C. is this contract with America mindset of granting tax cuts, and on the other side of the ledger, increasing the national debt to be so magnanimous. Another set of ignorant policies is escalating the growth of the national debt, increasing growth of government and federal spending, calling for GNP or economic growth. The trickle down does not work with corporations. When corporations cut workers, lower wages, increase their profits, and take advantage of the magnanimous tax cuts that are burying this nation in red ink. So we're sinking like a rock. All right, some more here. Somehow I find it disconcerting to be a nation of 300 million people adrift without a rudder or a sane captain. So here we are with 300 million people in the USA, and apparently a small handful of people are going to destroy us all because of ignorance, apathy. It is equally disconcerting that with 300 million people, we have the morons we have at the helm of our government. Talking myself silly here. Wear me out. So we got 537 House, Senate, in the House and Senate. 537 people at the helm of our government. Cooperating to destroy we 300 million, and that includes the president and vice president. So they are 0.0000179%. So like 1,000th of a percent of them against us 300 million. And the same thing over in Europe, EU. But you see, they've been slowly encroaching upon our local governments, police departments, state governments, legislation, passing more laws, inhibiting our abilities to survive and do anything. Everybody's focused on trying to make some money to barely pay the bills. Homelessness is on the increase. So they know what to do, but most people probably don't know what the real problem is, what the plan is. You can use that as an indicator as to how to define the bottom of the barrel, as opposed to how they think that makes them the super elite and royalty among us. They want us to believe you can have anything you want if you want it badly enough. You can be anything you want to be. Do anything you set out to accomplish, if you hold that desire with the singleness of purpose. Who said that? Abraham Lincoln. What do you want to be? What do you want your life to be like? What do you want America to be? Those questions, the answers, and our actions in the future will determine our fate. They are proving right now that all incumbents have to go. As long as they are in office, this nation will remain broken. I'll further say, as long as we don't expose the truth, for example, indict the people who really did 9/11, and many other things, this nation will be broken. Apparently now there's a new call to form a new Republic of America, because they're going to say the old one is broken, and they'll want to do away with the Constitution. It'll all be a trick. They'll all get together. Them, the evil ones in control, are going to fix it. Yeah, right. Cashless society coming to a neighborhood near you soon? What does that mean? Crashing the system. Grocery stores empty. What will you do? Will you get on the bus to the FEMA camp? Remember Germany. Remember Russia during the Russian Revolution. 100 million people killed, Christians and other good people. All of the Christian churches destroyed, but not the Jewish temples. And remember, Freemasonic lodges are called temples. FYI. So you know what needs to happen. Why vote them out is not an option. It is essential to the survival of the nation. All right, let's get into some crazy info. Baal, B-A-A-L, demon. So people don't believe in this stuff. The documentation's there. Look at this guy, this demon. He's got spider legs, 3 heads. One looks like a frog. The other one looks like thinks he's a king or an aristocrat. And the other one looks like a wolf or something. So let's talk about Baal. So who are these entities? Maybe possessed humans also. And interestingly enough, if you've been watching my videos, I've been studying psychic research for years. And a lot of people use pendulums and rods to find water. But basically, you can communicate with your subconscious. You are a spiritual being, which operates at an infinitely higher frequency than this physical body. I don't know if you remember watching the Star Trek series, where in one of the shows, they had to drink something to speed up their metabolism, and then they would disappear, and they would be able to communicate with these other entities that were operating at a much higher frequency. And then later on, they had to take some kind of drink to bring them back into this reality, which is much slower. But while they were in that fast reality, they could look at the humans walking around, and the rate of speech was so different. All they could hear was, you can watch the show. So the slow-moving humans couldn't see them in the higher dimension of reality. Remembering now that Gene Roddenberry was into this psychic stuff and meditation, which apparently is where he got a lot of storylines for the Star Trek series, where, coincidentally enough, a lot of reptilian creatures. So what is real? So anyways, when I take a pendulum over the picture of a person, and I ask to know that person's will, here's my finger. So I want to know my will. You see it's going over here towards the right? That means that my soul and my natural self has feelings for people. Like, I could almost cry when I saw that picture of that 15-year-old boy being beheaded over there in Iraq the other day. I said, my God, when will this stop? So that would indicate that I have a will and apathy and love, like Jesus taught, treat your fellow man like you want to be treated. Now, on the other hand, if I say here, give me Aleister Crowley's will, it's going in a circle back and forth. I discovered that means possession. And give me Dick Cheney's will, and it goes over here towards the other side, which shows that he would take a friend hunting and shoot him. In other words, he has no conscience about doing bad things for whatever reason. And maybe he thinks, for whatever his God is or whatever, he thinks it's right. So if you study this stuff, I'm not trying to be crazy here, but I did notice, and it was unexpected, by the way, but under some people, when I held the picture of them in my hand and said, show me this man's will, it started gyrating, like the person was possessed. And so when true or not, that's neither here nor there, but it's just something you can get the books and read up on this stuff. I have. I spent, I think, my whole first year or two more into psychic research and all this New Age stuff because I didn't know. I remember all this stuff, a lot of this magic, or call it miracles, are in the Bible. Jesus healing people, lepers, maimed, blind, can't hear, raising the dead. So when I was using the pendulum, practicing, because I had read the books, and I would put it over certain people's pictures, which is how you do it. Remember, they have books written for the police departments on how to use psychics who use pendulums to find people who are lost in the forest. This is common knowledge. I have the books. So what a person who knows how to use the pendulum will take, we all know a little bit how voodoo works. You got to have a little bit of somebody's hair or their fingernail clippings or their clothing, and then the psychic can find them. Well, when in the Midwest, let's say Colorado in the National Forest, if some people who went hiking disappear, the rangers have been known to go to a local psychic, bring an object that that person owned, and the psychic would hold the pendulum over the map, scan it back and forth, asking where this person was, and all of a sudden it would start gyrating on a particular place on the map. And the psychic would put a little X there, and then they give the map to the helicopter pilot. They would fly out there, and there the hikers would be. Many indications. I could go over to my bookshelf and bring you a stack of books. I've done it in the past about this subject. So I practiced and I studied. My point to this story is, on some people, I found out they not like somebody like Dick Cheney might have been evil, and then somebody might be a good person. And and the closer you are to the center line is the more evil you are, or the more good you are towards the center line. So of course when I did the thing over Jesus, it was about perfect good, and Aleister Crowley was pretty perfect evil. FYI, we are all beings with a particular DNA code, and a spiritual being. We are spiritual beings, just like when Jesus died, they called it giving up the ghost, and out-of-body experiences in hospitals. So it just might behoove us to wonder what these evil people, the money changers, their intentions for enslaving the world, having no qualms about murdering all those Arabs, beheading people. You've got to get it in your head. You've got to say to yourself, what human being could do this? Why are some of us to the right like lambs and sheep? And some of us are like snakes and wolves. And we all know that they can do these evil things and look you in the face and act as charming as can be. So anyways, in my research back in 2007, they got this guy named Baal. Baal is a Judeo-Christian demon. His name also refers to various gods and goddesses who are not demons. This is a potential source of confusion. In this article, the name Baal is used only to refer to the demon Baal, unless stated otherwise. Until archaeological digs at Ras Shuma and Elbar uncovered text explaining the Syrian pantheon, the demon Baal Zubub was frequently confused with various Semitic spirits and deities entitled Baal. And in some Christian writings, it might refer to a high-ranking devil or to Satan himself. In the ancient world of the Persian Empire, from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea, worship of wooden and metal idols was being rejected in favor of the Abrahamic God. In the Levant, the idols were called Baals, each of which represented a local spirit deity or demon. Worship of all such spirits was rejected as wrong, and many, in fact, considered malevolent and dangerous. So you got to be, even Jesus says in the Bible, you have to test the spirits. Look that up on the computer, test the spirits. Because there are entities out there that communicate with people, but you don't know if they're benevolent or malevolent, whether they're good or whether they're evil. How can you know? So many people I've talked to in my life said, yeah, some entity, masters communicating with me. And I'm like, well, how do you know it's a good communication? So anyways, you can test the spirit by asking them, was Jesus risen from the dead? Was Jesus born? And apparently, if they're evil, they'll lie and say no. And if they tell the truth, yes, then they're supposed to be benevolent entities. So are there these entities? Are these the aliens and UFOs? Are we being deceived? Is there going to be a grand deception? Will there come an Antichrist? And I'm not trying to get on a religious tone here. I'm trying to get to the truth. Originally, this Semitic god Hadad was worshipped by Aramans, who brought his worship to other parts of the Mediterranean. He is also called the Lord, Baal, and ruled over the high gods' assembly on the holy mount of heaven. Early demonologists, unaware of Hadad, or that Baal in the Bible referred to any number of local spirits, came to regard the term as referring to one personage. The idea of Baal as one specific demon was recreated when Christianity regarded ancient gods as demons, mere spirits, whether good or evil. And demonology divided the demonic population of hell in several hierarchies. So maybe in this Hades, this other realm, another dimension where people's spirits go when they die. And apparently there's probably a lot of people in Hades, hell. And apparently it says here several hierarchies of people in those evil dimensions. So all of our evil politicians probably vying for top spots in the kingdom of Hades. Just a crazy thought to consider. Baal is a duke with 66 legions of demons under his command. During the English Puritan period, Baal was either compared to Satan or considered his main assistant. According to Francis Barrett, he has also the power to make those invoke him invisible, and to some other demonologists, the power is stronger in October. According to some sources, he can make people wise and speak hoarsely. While his Semitic predecessor was depicted as a man or bull, the demon Baal, with a Genomori tradition, said to appear in the form of a man, cat, or toad, or a combination thereof, as illustrated in Placy's 1818 book, Dictionary Inferno, rather curiously placed the heads of the three creatures on a set of spider legs. Just stuff to think about. What is the religion of these evil folks who are preparing to crash the USA system and mass murder a lot of people, so it seems? Well, continuing on with some more interesting information. There's something called the Baha'i faith. And I think it would behoove us to wonder what this new one world religion is going to be and ask some questions. Here's one of their buildings. And if you think they're just joking about what they're doing, look at that building. The seat of the Universal House of Justice, governing body of Baha'i in Haifa, Israel. Did you hear me? And they have this 9-pointed star-shaped thing. We might want to read what it's all about. The Baha'i faith is a religion founded by Baha'u'llah, I'm saying it wrong, in the 19th century Persia, so that would have been in the 1800s, emphasizing the spiritual unity of all humankind. Sounds good. There are around 6 million Baha'is in more than 200 countries and territories around the world. According to Baha's teaching, religious history has unfolded through a series of God's messages who brought teachings suited for the capacity of the people at their time, whose fundamental purpose is the same. Baha'u'llah is regarded as the most recent. So they got these God's messengers coming to give us a new religion to mankind. And at each time, it's a different messenger to give us a message of that time. Can you see it? How many people are buying this stuff? Baha'u'llah is regarded as the most recent, but not final, in a line of messengers that includes Abraham, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, and others. I'm sure most people have seen the back of somebody's car where they have that circle, and all of the different religions of the world are on that circle. I guess that would be the Baha faith. Baha'u'llah claim to fulfill the ecological promises of previous scriptures, coincides with his mission to establish a firm basis for unity throughout the world, one world order, and inaugurate an age of peace and justice, which Baha expect will inevitably arise. So they have these nice buildings, and they have this little symbol. Let's read some more. I'm only reading my highlighted portion. You can look this stuff up. Get a little educated like I did. So this paragraph here is titled God. The Baha writings describe a single imperishable God, the creator of all things, including all the creatures and forces in the universe. Baha's teachings state that God is too great for humans to fully comprehend. According to the Baha teachings, the human purpose is to learn to know and love God through such methods as prayer and reflection. Another paragraph here titled Religion. Baha's notions of progressive religious revelation result in their accepting the validity of most of the world's religions, whose founders and central figures are seen as the manifestations of God. Baha, however, assert that their religion is a distinct tradition with its own scriptures, teaching, laws, and history. Now remember, this building we looked at was in Israel. Human beings. The Baha writings state that human beings have a rational soul, and that this provides the species with a unique capacity to recognize God's station and humanity's relation with its creator. Every human is seen to have a duty to recognize God through his messengers and to conform to their teachings. So it just makes me wonder. It says all of us humans are supposed to recognize God, which I believe in God. But how do you rationalize those people who are murdering all of the Arabs in the Middle East and many other people in the planned World War I, World War II, Vietnam War, Korean War, French Revolution, Napoleon Wars, all of the evil in the world and the murder over the years, while they're worshiping some kind of evil demonic beings? Apparently, the Lucifer demon god cast out of heaven hates humans. Remember the last video I did where Supreme Rockefeller said he's changed his mind. And he was bent on destroying humanity, but now he's come to save humanity. When a human dies, the soul passes into the next world, where its spiritual development in the physical world becomes a basis for judgment and advancement in the spiritual world. Heaven and hell are taught to be spiritual states of nearness and distance from God that describe relationship in this world and the next, and not physical planes of reward and punishment achieved after death. So they would have you believe that there's no punishment or reward. The Baha'i writings emphasize the essential equality of all human beings and the abolition of prejudice. Humanity is seen essentially one, though highly varied in diversity of race and culture, is seen as worthy of appreciation and tolerance. Doctrines of racism, nationalism, caste, and social class are seen as artificial impediments to unity. Unity, it sounds like communism. The Baha'i teachings state that the unification of mankind is the paramount issue in the religious and political conditions of the present world. So here we have another Baha'i house of worship in India. Attracts an average of 4 million visitors a year. From its origins in the Persian and Ottoman Empire, the Baha'i faith has acquired a number of Western converts by World War I. 50 years later, its population has spread throughout the world as a result of the Baha'i pioneering effort. Basic unity of all religions and condemnation of all forms of prejudice. So you're not going to be able to dislike it when they tell everybody they can be homosexuals, transgender, involved in sodomy and adultery and pansexual, have sex with anything, and pedophilia, because there'll be condemnation of all forms of prejudice. All forms. Didn't leave out pedophilia. Okay, humankind is able to soar the introduction of compulsory education, the adoption of a universal auxiliary language, the abolition of extremes of wealth and poverty, the institution of a world tribunal for the adjudication of disputes between nations, the exaltation of work performed in the spirit of service, and to the rank of worship, and the glorification of justice as the ruling principle of human society, and of religion as a bulwark for the protection of all peoples and nations, and the establishment of a permanent and universal peace as a supreme goal of all mankind. These stand out as the essential elements. Baha'u'llah proclaims. One more little bit here on this here. Although it concentrates on social and ethical issues, some of the Baha'i faith's foundational texts have been described as mystical. Sahih Effendi had called the 7 Valleys of Ballahu the greatest mystical composition. It was written by a follower of Sufism, a mystic of the esoterical tradition of Islam. So you don't believe in ghosts, do you? You don't believe in God, do you? You don't believe in demons, do you? Do you believe in gray aliens? Reptilians? UFOs, aliens? That the government has a plan for a new world order that all of the government officials of high positions have said with their lips, including the Pope at the Vatican. People don't believe. What are they going to do to bring about this whole change? The covenant. The Baha'i teachings speak of both a greater covenant being universal and endless, and a lesser covenant being unique to each religious dispensation. The lesser covenant is viewed as an agreement between the messenger of God and his followers, and includes social practices and the continuation of authority in the religion. But this time Baha'u'llah's view, revelation is a binding lesser covenant to his followers. In the Baha'i writings, being firm in the covenant is considered a virtue to work towards. All right, moving on to another document. Just trying to make a point. There's more to reality out there. Some people are evil. You can tell, you don't need a pendulum. Not what they say, it's what they do. So let's talk about this for a second. One page. Prophets. A prophet or prophetess is a person obligated with the responsibility of being the follower from a holy person or thing with the purpose of making social change. The bulk of recorded prophetic experience from the Jewish Tanakh suggests that prophets do not seek the gift of prophecy and often lack motivation to fill its obligation, seek no reward for the delivery of the message, indeed facing persecution, incarceration, and execution in the process. So if you're a prophet back in the ancient times and what you prophesied didn't come true, you were likely killed, beheaded. Here's a little picture that's interesting. Just trying to consider all the options here and thinking. See the angel? So apparently these angelic beings went to people and talked to them, and they had to pass the message on to society. In Abrahamic religion, a prophet is seen as a person who is encountered by and speaks as a formal representative of the one God, without regard to his or her position in society, age, willingness to accept the message, place or time of the initial contact, or intended place or group of its deliverer. The intention of the message is always to effect a social change, to conform to God's desires initially specified in the Torah directed by Moses. The means of effecting change through prophecy is to include the message suggestions of positive and negative effects that would be enacted by the divine towards the society in question, such as rewards or punishments should the message be accepted or granted or ignored. A depiction of a Jewish prophet Jeremiah. So here's a picture of a Jewish prophet. And of course we have the one here with the angel. So what I'm trying to point out, what are we to believe? Are we to believe there is a plan coming? Okay, what is this Jewish religion? You're not going to believe this. Here's a list of the prophets of the Talmud. So beings came to these Jewish people. Here's a list of them. You can look up this document. I guess there was more than one page. Classical Jewish texts teach that the most direct forms of prophecy ended shortly after the destruction of the first temple in 586 BC. Remember, they're supposed to rebuild the third temple, and that'll be their kingdom, so that's probably one of the reasons why they're murdering all the Arabs and dispersing the rest of them out of there. They have plans to rule the world. Not all Jewish people, of course, but apparently some people into these particular unique religions of the Zionism, into the Kabbalah and other witchcraft and magic, communicating with beings from the beyond. And the question is, are they communicating with good beings, benevolent, or malevolent, saying they're going to rule the world and enslave humanity? However, various rabbinic Jewish works include the Midrash state that other, less direct forms of communication between man and God still exist and have never ended. Many Jewish works, including the Talmud and the Maimonides, Guide for the Perplexed, states that the Gentiles may receive prophecy. However, Judaism generally does not accept that any of these specific people, well known in other religions, are genuine prophets. Jews have recognized specific Gentile leaders as a prophet, as most people who claim to be prophets, and in other religions have done so in such a way as to delegitimize or supersede Judaism itself. Judaism, based on Deuteronomy chapter 13, 18-20, holds that no true prophet will create a new faith or religion as a successor to Judaism. The Talmud states that minor forms of prophecy still occur. The Talmud states that each time a Jew studies the Torah or its rabbinic commentaries, God is revealed anew, and there is still a link between the God and the Jewish people. Just people ought to be aware that they're teaching through the school system. They've taken over our school systems, as per lots of evidence, like the Secret Establishment book I've been going over, that talks about the skull and bones, which is taking over the education, medical, environmental, economic positions of government for the last 100 years. They don't want people to believe there's a God. Meanwhile, you can go to the Wailing Wall and see the Jewish people praying and taking their head like that, beating it on the wall, and hopefully they're not chanting, "Death to America, death to America." It's just insane that these people are into. And there appears to be some demonic beings in another dimension that can affect, change, or do things in this reality. King Solomon had his magic ring, brought forth demons. I've been going over books. There's thousands of books. There's tons of evidence. And I don't believe that there are some galactic federation of aliens out there coming to save us. I believe these same entities, demonic beings, are these aliens, in cahoots with the people performing magic. I believe there have been beings that have lived on this planet all along. If you look at historic reports, even in the 1600s, when the captains of ships would get back to London, they would describe some saucer coming up out of the water, and I guess zooming past the ship and even crashing into the mast, breaking it. So the captain of the ship would file an insurance report. Ivan Sanderson mentioned some of that stuff in his book. I believe it's called Invisible Residents. In the Bible, there's mysterious kind of craft. The Hindu religions over in India, they got paintings of these saucer craft. So they've been living in the ocean, some more advanced beings, and living in the underground as Hitler was communicating with the Vril. Maybe down there in South America in the Arctic, where the sheets of ice are a mile high to get onto the Arctic. And all the countries of the world right now have bases going on down there. So what I'm trying to say is, who are these entities behind the scenes who apparently have some kind of planned event for the rest of us? So, and what do these Jewish people believe, and why do they have most Americans convinced there's no God and they shouldn't pray to God, when they know that if you do pray to God, prayer works. God can change things. And I think that's what they're afraid of. We all have a decision to be the good person or the bad person. So let me try to finish up this video. It's getting dark outside. The color of my video is changing. Deuteronomy 18:18, where God said, "I will put my words in his mouth, and he will speak to them all that I command." So apparently God can speak through people. Hollowness or openness. To receive transcendental wisdom, one must make oneself open. Fully a third of the Tanakh is devoted to books about prophetic experience including a separate book on minor prophets known as the 12 prophets. According to Samuel 9-9, the old name of Nevi-Ero, which literally means seer, this could document an ancient shift from the viewing prophets as seers for hire to viewing them as moral teachers. Allen, 1971, comments that in the First Temple era, there were essentially seer priests who formed a guild, divined and performed rituals and sacrifices, and were scribes. And then there were canonical prophets who did none of these and were against divination and had instead a message to deliver. So using a pendulum, asking to find water, and they were we call it divining for water. A lot of people would have died crossing the Midwest during the early years of the creation of the United States. Had they not had diviners who could take a stick and find water, a lot of people would have died. So, and how can you call that evil if you're finding water for schools or businesses? And what other things can you do? There's pages and pages more here on prophets. I think I'll end this video, but I'll just show you the pages. You can look this up. I've read all this. So you got Islam prophets, other prophets. So people don't want to believe in God. People don't want to believe there's more to reality. So this is prophets on Wikipedia. Anybody really wants to know. So I had more for this video. I guess I'll do one more. In Judaism, who is the Messiah? The Messiah is a God-fearing, pious Jew who is both a great Torah scholar and a great leader as well. He is a direct descendant of King David, who will be anointed as the new Jewish king. In fact, the Hebrew word for Messiah means anointed one. Well, Jesus Christ, the word Christ means anointed one. Interesting. When the Messiah comes, there will be universal recognition of truth of Torah and the God who gave that Torah at Mount Sinai. All Jews will return to the land of Israel, where they will throw off the yoke of their enemies and undergo a complete spiritual revival. They will embrace the faith of their forefathers and dedicate themselves to God's service. They will rebuild the holy temple, from where the divine presence will shine forth, spreading the light of truth, justice, tolerance, and peace throughout the world. Well, I can't believe all that will be built on murdering all the Arabs and destroying the United States and enslaving the people. We know through Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and all those institutions, the Zionist Jewish folks and most CEOs for companies, advisors and counselors for presidents and government officials operating behind the scenes have been fleecing the United States of billions and trillions of dollars. I can't believe they're going to build something great on that. Call me crazy. Today, the world is beset by jealousy, greed, theft, violence, lying, impatience, intolerance, deception, and fraud. We are suspicious of our neighbors and cynical of our leaders. We are fractionalized and we worship different gods. It's a dog-eat-dog world and every man for himself. Well, these people controlling our world created this kind of world. Look at the movies on TV, the TV shows, the murder and mayhem. I've gone over this stuff. The United Nations spending billions of dollars promoting the homosexual agenda for the world. We see all the Luciferic satanic symbols on corporations and TV programming and the football halftime shows with Madonna doing satanic rituals, Katy Perry doing satanic rituals, Beyonce doing satanic rituals. All of them. Jackson, what's her name? Doing satanic rituals. Michael Jackson's sister. during the Grammys, satanic rituals. Lady Gaga during the Olympic Games, satanic rituals. What about over there in Europe, where they had the Eurovision, which is a version of our American Idol program, the singers, and the winner, I think it was 2014, the winner of Eurovision in Europe was Conchita Wurst. Wurst means sausage. Conchita means a female part. Her head was like Jesus and her body was in a silky dress. And she sang the song, The Phoenix Rising, which has the words, "You can't stop us." Who controls the world? Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said, "Don't worry about America, we control America." The political action committees control America. They control our politicians. Our politicians, generally speaking, are all lying and doing things behind our backs. They're preparing for some event. And then we read this, the Jewish, who is the Messiah? We must also pray to God to hasten the coming of the Messiah. The Talmud says that one of the first questions a Jew is asked on Judgment Day is, did ye yearn for the arrival of the Messiah? If we so desire, he can come today. So my general piqued interest and concern here is their Messiah Lucifer? And are they supposed to be yearning for him every day, going to that wall and praying and beating their head against the wall? Come Messiah, come Lucifer, come Messiah. Are they doing that? What does that mean for the rest of us? So I decided to do this more on this video, on these documents. Not trying to wear out the issue, but Take America Back. People smarter than me wrote this stuff. I was learning back in 2007. It was hard to wrap my head around all this material. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle reporting.